Recently, a new line of Goosebumps action figures was released, but how do they compare to the originals? Let's find out. I have both the 90s Goosebumps action figures and the 2025 Goosebumps figures, and we're going to see which are better. Before we crack these guys open though, let's look at the packaging. Seniors go first, so let's take a look at the 90s Goosebumps action figures. Now, I couldn't find any English versions of the 90s figures, so French it is. First off, the 90s packaging is nostalgic. It's got that classic Goosebumps branding to it, and the artwork and pictures on the back are the definition of old school. Now, the 90s action figures were technically called monster bags. As you can see, the figure would be sealed inside a green bag, so you couldn't actually see it. This wasn't like a mystery box or anything. The packaging clearly shows which monster you're getting. So why hide the figure in a green bag? Well, I'll show you why in a little bit. Overall, the 90s action figure packaging is fine, but it's nothing special. Now let's move on to the 2025 figures. Each figure has its own unique packaging, made to resemble the cover of the book in which the monster first appeared. These are fantastic, and the attention to detail is great. They even made the top and bottom of the packaging look like pages. The only thing missing is R.L. Stine's name on the top of the box. It's not a big deal, but when you have the actual book next to it, it's pretty obvious. While the 90s Goosebumps packaging isn't bad, the 2025 packaging just knocks it out of the park. Alright, now it's time to get these guys out of the box. We'll start with the 90s figures, and here's what I was saying about that green bag. See, the idea is that you drop the bag into a thing of water. Each figure comes with a plastic knife, so after letting the green bag soak for a few minutes, you're supposed to use the knife to cut open the bag. Inside is a bunch of green gel, along with all the pieces of the action figure. You then piece the figure together yourself. I'll admit, I'm not huge on this, but it was kinda cool how the monster sort of emerges from the slime. Anyways, after doing that 3 more times, we got the complete set. Now the 90s Goosebumps action figures have 4 monsters: Slappy the Dummy, a horror from Horrorland, the Scarecrow, and Mr. Mortman, the creepy librarian from The Girl Who Cried Monster. Each figure only has 5 points of articulation: the legs, the arms, and the head. It's a bit limited, but for what it is, it's fine. Now, it might be because these toys are about 30 years old, but the detail and paint are fading on them. It could just be age, but I think the figures being packed inside gel didn't help. Now the figures come with 3 accessories each, and they did a pretty good job. For the Scarecrow, I like that in addition to coming with a torch and a piece of corn, there's also the Book of Superstitions that brings the Scarecrows to life. Or for the horror, he comes with a sign that references the original book cover. Plus, in addition to a bat, which I assume came from the Bat Barn, the horror action figure also comes with a black ice cream cone, something that's briefly mentioned in the One Day at Horrorland book. What I'm saying is that this is some good attention to detail, and whoever made these figures clearly read up on the source material. Now, the one problem with these accessories is that the figures can't really hold any of them. Some of this is okay, like the Horrorland sign stands up nicely on its own, but what are you supposed to do with the bat? I know these action figures were made to be played with and not displayed, but these small loose accessories are just begging to go missing. I just wish there were a way for the figures to hold them, or at least an easier way to display them. Overall though, these are some pretty sweet figures. They're of course made exclusively for kids, but with that said, the monster bag is kind of a fun gimmick, and I do appreciate the references to the original stories. Alright, let's jump 2 decades and a half to the 2025 Goosebumps action figures. Now, there's no bag that needs to be soaked, and there's no assembly required. Well, for the most part, but I'll get to that later. The 2025 Goosebumps lineup is a little bigger with 5 action figures. Here we have Slappy the Dummy and the Scarecrow returning, but there's also the Haunted Mask, the Mud Monster from You Can't Scare Me, and a mummy from Curse of the Mummy's Tomb. There is actually one more figure, but let's talk about these guys first. The amount of articulation and movement is pretty similar to that of the 90s figures, although I think the 2025 figures are a bit more limited. That's mainly due to these figures being more of display pieces than actual toys. The idea here is that you stick the figure to a stand that is included. Each stand includes a little card with the cover of the monster's respective book, as well as that little blurb on the back. These stands really help with displaying the figures, and in addition to the limited movement, these figures are more like statues, at least when compared to the 90s figures. Speaking of the 90s figures, while each one comes with 3 accessories, the 2025 figures don't come with anything. The only figure that comes close is the Haunted Mask, which comes with the plaster of Paris, the symbol of love that Carly Beth uses to free herself from the haunted mask. While I appreciate the accessories the 90s figures had, I'm okay not having any with the 2025 figures. Like I said, little pieces of plastic like that are just begging to go missing. Now, talking about accessories, each figure does come with a little something. Inside each box is a piece of another figure. When you assemble them together, you create a Curly the Skeleton figure. This is really cool, especially considering Curly never appeared as an actual character in Goosebumps. He was just the series mascot. I like seeing him get some recognition in action figure form. Now, there are two problems I have. One is, he's a bit flimsy, and even after putting him together, Curly still doesn't feel all that secure. However, the second and biggest issue is that there's no way to display him. Curly can't stand up on his own, and there's no stand for him, so you can't really show him off. Now, with that said, in addition to having a Curly the Skeleton figure, something else that's really cool is one little detail. As you've seen, Curly is holding a book, which happens to be the very first Goosebumps book, Welcome to Dead House. This is so cool, and the detail is amazing. Plus, the book is stuck to Curly's hand, so you won't lose it. Comparing the 90s and 2025 Goosebumps action figures, you can see some obvious differences. For one, the 90s figures are nearly identical in height and proportions. By contrast, the 2025 figures not only have more detail, but are also sized more accurately. Slappy's a ventriloquist dummy, so he's pretty small, while the Mud Monster is a behemoth. Talking about the Slappy action figures specifically, it struck me how different their skin tones are. The 90s figure's skin color is more human looking, while the 2025 figure is a lot darker and matches the original Night of the Living Dummy book cover. Now, with all that said, the 90s Goosebumps action figures are a lot better for actual play. Their articulation is limited, but compared to the 2025 figures, the 90s figures have them beat when it comes to being actual toys. In terms of the monsters that they chose, both the 90s and the 2025 figure lineups do a pretty good job, although they aren't perfect. I would have preferred if the 90s line took out Mr. Mortman and gave us the Haunted Mask. Likewise, in the 2025 line, get rid of the Mud Monster. It is a cool figure, but You Can't Scare Me was one of the worst Goosebumps stories, in my opinion. I would have much preferred if we got a Horrorland Horror instead. But now, it's time to answer the million-dollar question. Which Goosebumps action figures are the best? The originals from the 1990s or the newer ones from 2025? The 90s figures are nostalgic in an authentic way. The Goosebumps brand doesn't look like this anymore, and it's cool to see. I also really like the attention to detail with the accessories. The stuff they included is unique to that particular monster and the story they came from. Now, the 2025 figures have really awesome packaging. I honestly think they look better displayed in the box than outside of it. Plus, the amount of detail on the action figures is great, and the monsters look exactly like the book covers. The cherry on top is the stand that each monster comes with, and I love that they not only include the book cover, but also the little plot synopsis behind it, just like the actual Goosebumps stories. With all that said, while I think both lines of action figures are good, I'm giving the victory to the 2025 Goosebumps action figures. Now, you remember the Goosebumps TV show, right? Well, you probably don't realize there were several episodes that never saw the light of day. To hear about them and why you've never seen them, watch the video on screen.